We're live streaming this as well, so I've got a microphone on, and we've got some people from the parish and from the community that are watching this as well. So
I have to be on my best behavior.
no, you don't. I do. And I've got a time frame that I have to work on as well, too. So let me start this history that we've got of these two windows here that are made up of shards of glass rather than a single piece of glass as the rest of the windows are. And the story starts in 1939 when Harold Appleyard came to Christ Church as its rector, but he was also the padre of the regiment that was in this area. And when the regiment was sent overseas in late 41, he of course went over with it, and they were camped in South England. Battle of Britain was over, tremendous destruction done, but he wanted to take a look at the history that was so much a part of our church here, because this is a tremendously typical Gothic architecture. So he went and took a look at the cathedrals and the churches that were there, many of them destroyed in ruins, some of them with just the glass blown out, but all of it with destruction. And when he took a look at all of that, he thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if something constructive could be done from all of this destruction? So he went to the sextons or the ministers or the whatever, and he said, I would like to be able to collect some of this glass that is spread around the churchyards and make something out of it after this war is over. The important thing was he got permission to get this glass, and that was critical. Today, you wouldn't get permission to do it under any circumstances, but it was different circumstances back there. So he started to collect that glass, and he used one of the ammunition, and that's the actual ammunition box there, that he used to collect the glass and take it back, and then he began to wonder what he was going to do with all of this glass. One of the days that he was on fire picket duty at the St. Paul's Cathedral in London, he met a man by the name of Mr. Sharon. And Mr. Sharon had been appointed by the royal family to look after the history of particularly the churches that were being destroyed at that time so that it would continue on. And when he discovered what Harold Appleyard was doing, he was very supportive. In fact, you'll see some glass from St. Paul's Cathedral in these windows that are here. But he got in touch with a company that made stained glass windows and is still in business doing that, Cox and Barnard today. And he took the glass to them and they said, if you bring us the glass, we will put them together into windows, and we will do it as our thanks offering for the Canadians that are coming over to help us in this time of need that was there. So the windows or the pieces of glass in boxes like that went to them, and they started to put it together. By the time he was finished collecting, he had over 130 churches and cathedrals, not just in southern England, but some from Ireland, and some from France and Belgium and Holland, when after D-Day they went across to the continent as well. And that glass was all put together into these windows that are here. In a moment, I'm going to show you a picture that is dated April 1946. And that is Harold Appleyard back at the church looking at one of the windows, his wife and Ted, the oldest of the three children, who is incredibly disappointed they couldn't be. He was supposed to be here today, and health reasons stopped him from. But they're taking a look at one of the other parts of the memorial that is here, and that's this plaque. The plaque is the back of a pew out of Christ Church in Westminster that was destroyed. And they brought it over, and the names that are on there are the names of 6 of the parishioners from our church that were killed in the war. Their families provided the finances to be able to put the memorial windows in here. But the war memorial windows are not just for Christ Church, they're for their entire community. One of the books that is there with the red cover has in it a number of pictures and write-ups of the various people in Meaford that were actively involved in the war. Sometimes what division they were with, whether they were injured, whether they were killed, and so on. But that information is there. The other two books have information of when Harold Appleyard was collecting the glass, pictures of the churches that were there. Some of it was letters that were written to him, thanking him for what they were doing and giving permission for it. Some churches actually found out that this was happening, and they sent and asked Harold Appleyard if they could contribute some glass to be able to put into the windows as well too. So all of that was done, and at the end of, and well, I guess some of it, there's a particular history in some of them. This panel that is here is from Chichester Cathedral. And Chichester Cathedral, according to my remembering my history of grade 9, was built about 1100. So the glass here is centuries old. Up above, and it's very difficult to see from back there, but up above there is a little poppy. He discovered that poppy when they were taking shelter in a churchyard in France with the bombing that was going on, and he discovered that poppy that was there. And of course the poppy has become so important to us, and so it's part of the windows. But he was meticulous. He kept track of all of the glass, what churches they were from. One of the books here has a legend that has these windows with numbers on them, and the numbers down the side show what the cathedral or what church they came from. We sometimes have people come in and say, my parents were in such and such a parish, or I was just visiting there, or do you have any glass from our window, from our church that's there? Fortunately, we can go and take a look at that and say, yes, we have, because then there's the number on it. You go find that number in the windows, and you'll be able to see what it is. In a number of years ago, when they were doing some of the centennials for it, some of the Bath Abbey and a couple of other churches that knew what had happened got in touch with us and said, can you give us some information about what you've done over there with the glass that was in our windows? And so we would send over some pictures, do something like this, and give them the recognition that what we have over here is a memorial. It is not a tourist attraction. These windows are as important as all of the rest of the windows, but they are unique. And in 1998, the Reader's Digest and the Canadian Geographic, both looking for a special article for their November issue dealing with remembrance, discovered these windows. They had a writer that was up in this area, and she sent them the information about these windows and said, maybe you might consider this. So the November 1998 issue of Reader's Digest and the Canadian Geographic both feature these windows that are here. So from then on, we've had a number of people that come and want to take a look at the windows. So we had to have a number of volunteers that were willing to do what I'm doing and talk with people, whether they came in one at a time or a family or a whole busload that came up to see the apples. And so we've been doing that. It's particularly personal for me as well, because I was born and grew up in Meaford. I sat in one of these pews all the time. I was a very young child. One of the last things that Harold Appleyard did in 1941, before he went overseas, was he baptized me. The three children that they had, and one of them was Ted, and then there was David, and there was Nancy. All three children are still members of this parish, and two of them come to the church on a regular basis in the summer season. So it's incredibly important to my faith, and to Meaford, but it's also very important to me personally as well. And I can tend to carry on at times, and I know I've got a time frame that I'm dealing with these, but there are a number of other people that will do it as well. But I've got that long-term connection with it, and all three Appleyard children were so disappointed that they couldn't be here doing this with you as opposed to having me do it. But the windows then became very important to the parish, and we're more than happy to do this for anyone that wants to come in, and we're honored Your Honor, that you wanted to come and take a look at these windows as well. There are two others. There are 4 panels. There were 6 panels that were made by Cox and Barnard. 4 of the panels are here. Tremendous artist and symmetrical work done in that one. There are 2 others that we didn't have enough room for in the nave of the church. They're in the cloister that we go up to the parish hall. So, and that's, I understand, where you're going at this particular stage. So let me give you a couple of pieces of information. The information that is in there is written by his 3 children. They wanted to make sure that they understood that it was a memorial. And so if you take a look at that, and I'll give you some others as well that you might like to take, and let's move back into the, do you have, you may questions?
Well, can I just?
Yeah. This.
But I had a question. I mean, they're all very intricate because you see all kinds of stained glass windows these days.
That's right.
These are all very intricate. Was there any decision about the theme behind them or which particular faces and individuals?
No, that Cox and Barnard, you can just imagine them taking all these shards, spreading them out over a whole floor and saying, okay, how are we going to put them together? There, you can see the symmetry in the faces or the symmetry in the circles, but that was the artistic work that was done by them. Glass, as you know, stained glass has changed dramatically over the years, and we have had people come in that know stained glass, and yep, it's the actual one that's there. And there's the paper. And we have people that they'll take a look at some of this stained glass and say, I know that that's from the 17th century, or I know that that's from the 18th century. The Christian symbols that are around there, that the symbolism that is there, and the fact that they didn't, the scorch marks that are there are the actual scorch marks of when it was destroyed. And yeah. And this is the legend pages, and if you know of any particular parish in England that you're interested in, you might be able to take a look at it. But they are so old that it's very difficult to see some of the numbers.
So which is the Irish one?
That's, yeah, Holland and France, and I'm...
Sorry, it's just
No.
a Belfast.
Yep.
Moravian Church in Belfast.
Yeah. So what you would need to do is we need to go and find 51.
I say that because that's where I was born.
Okay. Well, yeah, you now have a reason to come back and look for that. So let's go in and take a look at these other windows.
Now, I find that really unusual.
The dark, yeah. And this is the Reverend Appleyard here, is that? Yes, and that's a picture of Padre Appleyard or Reverend Appleyard, and he became bishop of this area. And of course, all of those shards will have come from windows that looked like that.
Oh, and they actually have
Yep.
recognition of people. Now, do people know this throughout the province?
Yes, they do. When the Reader's Digest, of course, was well read by a lot of people, so we ended up getting a whole number of people phoning, first of all, wanting to know where Meaford was, and then secondly, how to get to the church. And that's when we had to start to set up people that could do that, because you can't leave the churches unlocked anymore. Liability doesn't allow you. Churches used to always be open and safe havens, but to have somebody come up and discover it's locked is a real frustration. All of the glass in this window that is here is glass that was from the churches and cathedrals that Sir Christopher Wren designed and built in the late 15th, early 1600s.
Do people realize how lucky you are? To have
Yeah, I know.
Christopher Wren's
The-
work?
And the most, of course, the most famous of that was St. Paul's Cathedral.
Well, exactly.
And that green circle that is up at the top there, that circle of glass, that's from St. Paul's Cathedral.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And this particular window that's all of a piece was his own. He had that commissioned by Cox and Barnard after the war. And thank you for surviving the war himself. And of course he used St. George because of England and warrior. And that was had it brought back here. And then at the same time as the windows were installed in here, the St. George was built at that time. We have small services in there.
Now, do you ever have any concern about damage or?
There's lots of protection.
perspective?
Do you know, the worst damage that we have to protect against is from the church in the wintertime with the ice that becomes icicles that come off the roof. So there is very secure plexiglass on the outside of the windows there that protect them from damage that way. Yeah.
We try to be good stewards of.
And another width of and they, you know, the fact that they took one that was sort of 90% there and then found some piece that they could put into it to complete the circle. Also didn't waste any glass. They had to cut the glass to fit into it, and all of the pieces along the side are all the border that is there are all the extra pieces that they had to cut in order to make them fit in the windows.
Amazing colors.
Yes. Stay, yeah.
So
Yeah.
intense.
From the 19th century all the way to 900 years ago.
Yeah.
And
The war memorial windows, and I have, as I
Well,
said,
who
it's
knew? I like to say
more.
I learn something every day, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we've got at least one good one we can post on social media
Good.
so
Good.
that people can see it for
We're not
themselves.
quite Reader's Digest, but we do.
We do have some followers.
I am quite sure that message will get out. Absolutely, no. We were just when we discovered that you were coming, it was just tremendous,
Oh, it was
tremendous.
a great idea.
And I understand you've got other things to do as well. So
Well, there are a
I will thank you for coming.
Time, I really
Well, it's,
appreciate it.
yeah, you can see it's a love of mine, so it
Absolutely.
is not a problem at all.
Take a photo of you two together, perhaps in front of that last window.
Okay.
Gratitude for your tour.
Indeed.
Okay, now do you want this one or do you want your?